Hello again, everyone, and welcome back to the front line with Joe and Joe. Joe Pasillo, as always, joined by Joe Resinello. And once more, dear brothers and sisters, let us go into the breach. And if you're joining us here, you're seeing us on Rumble, X, YouTube, or Facebook. If you like what we're going to talk about, if you like our style, if you like what we do, help us out. Share the video. Share it with your friends. Like, subscribe. You know the deal. Joe and I try to go out of our way, and people that are producing content that we like. It doesn't take too long to hit a subscribe or to hit a share. Tonight's going to be a really good conversation. Okay, really good conversation. Got to talk about Justin Trudeau alongside, because what Joe and I try to do is we're trying to point out atrocities all over the place. Okay, so north of the border, in America, there's just crackpots all over the place. Justin Trudeau happens to be one of them. All right, but we're going to talk about this nonsense again. It's all about Joe. Didn't you know it's all about democracy? They put their hands like this, like they're praising God. Like it's all about democracy. So the thing is, I don't know how climate change and democracy seem to work together, but Justin Trudeau seems to want to spend more of Canadian taxpayer money to explore, Joe Resinello. He wants to explore how the interaction between climate change and democracy. Now, again, Joe, I only went to Seton Hall University. I didn't go to Harvard. I didn't go to Yale. Okay, but to me, I don't see any connection between democracy and climate change. But we'll get into that in a minute. We're also going to RFK, by the way, Joe Resinello. We're going to talk about this. There's an article out there. He's showing himself to be a little bit of a coward, where a lot of people are saying, you got to vote for this guy. He's got stones. He's not going to take any crap. Well, guess what? CNN basically pushed him around a little bit. We're going to talk about that. And then we got a couple funny clips for you that really have to do with Donald Trump. And we'll explain that as we go along. But let's get the conversation going. Joe, here's the thing. I think it's like $8.5, $9 million, okay, that Justin Trudeau wants to spend to. Now, this is what I read, okay? This was in LifeSite News, by the way, that the interaction between climate change and democracy. Now, Joe, the government wastes a lot of money, both north of the border and in America. To me, I can understand wasting money, let's say, for argument's sake, if you say that you have patronage jobs because your cousin happens to be working for the Garden State Parkway collecting tolls, so you got to give them an income. That's a waste of money, but I understand it. I do, all right? There is no connection between climate change and democracy. Joe, help me out, because I think it's just more virtue signaling that, hey, I'm a good guy, and I'm going to spend your money to prove that I'm a good guy.
Well, let's just break down the numbers. Trudeau commits to $8.4 million to study the impact of climate and environment issues on democracy. The money's part of a $30 million plus project to strengthen democracies in Canada and around the world. Let me break down the $30 million. $22.3 million of the 30 is to defend human rights and promote inclusion. $1.44 million is to strengthen, get this one, to strengthen the resilience of Francophone LGBTQ rights in North Africa.
Okay, all right.
And $4.6 million of the 30 will be spent in research to create an equitable, feminist, and inclusion digital space. Okay, so Justin Trudeau is spending taxpayer money on resiliency of Francophone LGBTQ rights in North Africa, equitable, feminist, and inclusion digital space, while his own people cannot buy food, cannot pay rent, and they can't heat their homes. What does that say to you? I mean,
here's what it says here, real quick. I'm going to throw it right back to you. I can't wait for one of these trannies to complain to Justin Trudeau that the cost of heating oil is too high and complain about that. And then what is he going to say to that person? He's going to start yelling at them, because that's what Justin Trudeau does. When you question him when you hit him with hard questions, that's what he does. He starts yelling. Why are you yelling at me? You selfish Canadian, you just want cheap gas. And that's what he does. So the thing is, but here's my question. What is any of that, even if climate change was something to be taken seriously, and it's not? We have Curly May in the chat room saying neither is happening. That's right, referring to neither climate change nor democracy in Canada. What does any of that have to do with so-called climate change? What is francophone
I don't even know.
LGBT gobbledygots, as my mother would
He's
say?
giving him 1.4 million bucks.
Why doesn't he give us $1.4 million?
That's
I
right.
can use the money.
I mean, it's Joe. I can't even wrap my arms around it. It's insane. And by the way, he recently promised $3 billion to the Ukraine.
Right.
Like, he can't. His people are starving. Here's a statistic. This is from Canada's Department of Social Development. So it's from the government. They basically said that the nation's poverty rate could increase by 14% this year because of the price of high food. That's sick.
I
And
don't.
he's
Here's the thing, Joe. I'm sorry. I know this talk like this. For the censors at Google and everything else, but it leads me to believe that there's something untoward. How about we put it like that? Going on with the ELCtions, if you know what I'm saying. Okay, because I don't want to say the word. There's something going on because you can't promote this in a nation. Listen, Joe. Canada, the working people in Canada, you know what they do? They dig for oil. The people out in Alberta. I have a cousin who grew up in St. Catharines in Ontario. Okay, he works out at the tree line, where the tree line ends at about 20 below zero, because that's where the oil is. Okay, he works out there. The blue collar people of Canada, you're going to tell me that they're voting for Justin Trudeau when basically the biggest export in Canada is oil and gas? They need it. But it shows you something. It shows you two things, and I'm going to throw it back to you. One is that I really believe that guys like Justin Trudeau, without like Alphonse the Butcher with his thumb on the scale, you know what I mean, when he's weighing the meat, without the thumb on the scale, okay, and a willing press, that these guys couldn't get elected dog catcher. I really believe that, because you can't propose something like this with a straight face and really believe you're going to get elected Prime Minister of Canada. Joe, help me, man.
Well, he's taking care of the francophone LGBTQ people in North
Africa.
Joe, so that's a good thing.
Aren't there LGBT people in Quebec that he wants to take care of?
They can't eat. I can't even believe that he gets one vote. It's
I
so
really
embarrassing, Joe. I'll be honest with you. I mean, we have nothing to laugh at. We have a guy that, if he's alive in 4 years, he's going to be sitting in a wheelchair in a nursing home, staring down the hall.
Right.
That's where our president's at. It just shows you how democracy doesn't exist in these countries.
No,
that
it
it
really
is
doesn't.
a dictatorship. And the oligarchy just pretends, and it's getting so ridiculous. To be honest with you, I don't even know. It's so ridiculous that I don't know how anyone with a straight face can take it serious.
Well, no, you can't. Listen, Joe, you can't take it seriously because look, there's Democrats. Let's keep it Democrat Republican for a second. There's Democrats or liberals that I don't think are insane. I really don't. When you present a lot of this stuff, they go, hold it, wait a minute, man. Yeah, okay, I'm a liberal, but I'm not an insane person. Okay. Even liberals and people on the political left, Democrats, blue collar people, I'm sure they don't call them that in Canada, but Canadians might know what I'm talking about. Okay. They're voting for this. They really care about francophone, whatever the hell he's talking about, LGBT nonsense in North Africa or any of this stuff. Of course they don't. They're going to say, oh, do me a favor, dude. Don't spend the $8.4 billion on that nonsense because you're basically just lying to us. Don't give $3 billion more to the homosexual president of Ukraine because we don't want to give him any more money. He's a puppet. Trudeau's a puppet of the WEF. Biden, if you can't see, that guy's purely a puppet because he can't even speak half the time. All right. I don't know. People are not voting for this, but yet they convince us if we open our mouths that we're conspiracy nuts. We don't know what we're talking about. And I say, no. People are not as insane as you make them out to be. That's my point to Justin Trudeau and the American left is where people are not. And you're trying to convince me that the majority of the Canadian people voted for you? Joe, I'm having a hard time with it, brother.
The problem is they control the messaging. That's a big part. And another problem is they control the school systems. because basically it begins with an indoctrination of young children, and the very smart ones go on to the big universities. They're further indoctrinated and get twisted, and they buy into the lies. And then the press continues to pound the drum. And that's what it is. I mean, people, we're talking about facts, we're talking about numbers. I just quoted you a number from the Canadian government saying the poverty rate is going to go up by 14%
Right.
in a first world nation that is relatively rich compared to the rest of the world. That is due to inflation and the cost of food. That's coming from their government. That's not
But
coming from me.
But Joe, you got to remember something we said on the show a million times. If you want to see the model of what these oligarchs want, what you just described, Justin Trudeau behind closed doors, not in front of not in front of a television camera, but behind closed doors, his attitude is, yeah, right, because we want rich and we want poor, because that's what Klaus Schwab told me to do. That's what they do. Go look at San Francisco, where we said is rich and there's poor. There's rich and there's people defecating in the street. If you're shocked that 14% more of the Canadian people are going to be in poverty, I would say don't be, because that's the stated goal of the Marxists.
Well, poor people are easy to control. And that's why he's giving you the rebate on the carbon tax, because basically now you're a slave. I now control how you eat because I'm giving you a check.
Right.
And that is exactly what they want. People, you see, this is where, like I said, it's no longer about liberal and conservative when you can't eat.
Right.
You see, this is where it's at. Like you get 14, Joe, that's a big number.
That's a huge number.
That's a big number. And what I'm saying is it's getting to that. And again, poor people are easy to control. He has no business giving $3 billion to the Ukraine because his people are suffering.
Right.
He has no business giving money to climate change in the name of democracy, whatever the heck that means.
That means, yeah.
Because his people are suffering. If a leader should care about his people and what this should say to people point blank, and this is not even me saying it, just connect the dots. He cares about an ideology. He does not care about his own people. All he does is project. All he does is gaslight and deflect and put rhetoric out there, and the press bangs on the drum and brainwashes the people.
Joe, when the revolution comes, whether it's like I know you've described how did you describe it? A soft revolution or
it's a velvet revolution that happened in Czechoslovakia.
When it comes, okay, the press is going to be the first thing to fall, because remember something: you can't do this. You can't do what they do without a willing press. Joe, I would say that first and foremost. You can't cheat.
Oh, I agree.
You can't lie the way they lie about Donald Trump, the way they lie about people like us, the way they lie about people in our chat room who are independent thinkers. We're free thinkers, okay? We could think for ourselves. You can't lie to us if you don't control the press. Hence, now they're hammering that Elon Musk, that the value of X has gone down by half of what Elon Musk paid for it. Who cares? You think Elon Musk cares? The guy's worth $150 billion. Do you really think he cares that if his investment in X has been cut in half? He's playing the long game, okay? He's playing the long game. He actually has a free speech platform. But my larger point, Joe, is that's why they hate him so much. Because on X and Rumble, you can't control the narrative because you can't control the people that run those companies. And they hate that. The only way Justin Trudeau, I never saw anybody more fake in my life. Nobody. Even Bill Clinton, who lied with every breath that he could muster. Bill Clinton at least came across as authentic. You thought Bill Clinton, well, when he bit his lip like this, Joe, he said, I'll feel your pain. People believed it. I believed it at the time. Okay? Because at least he comes across as authentic, at least, but we know that he's a snake oil salesman. Justin Trudeau doesn't even come across as authentic. The only reason that guy gets elected, one of the main reasons, is the press. They control the narrative.
Well, he's not there to put forth ideas. He's a talking head.
Well, he has no ideas.
No,
Let's be
but I
clear.
mean, but they're not as dumb as you think. He's been very effective in pushing the agenda. And he has been extremely effective. He's destroyed Canada. He's destroyed the country, Joe. And he has put forth the globalists' agenda very far. In fact, he is, like, if you ask me, a star in like that whole like world of, if you ask me, demonic freaks. I mean, like, and
Demonic freak is a good way to put
they're
it.
destroying people, regular people. And people have to, if you ask me, they have to turn the news off. That's number one. You said something that's very important. They can't control the narrative without the press. The press is owned, and they don't talk about these things. And here's another thing. If this continues, one of two things is going to happen. Either the cracks are going to basically, as Patrick Deneen said, he's been on our show. He's a professor of political science at Notre Dame University. He said liberalism succeeded, and because it succeeded, it will collapse under the weight of its own self. And it's, to a degree, we're starting to see cracks in the woke deal. We recently saw LSU basketball team in the United States. They didn't show up for the national anthem. People are calling for the coach's head. And they lost. They lost. They weren't it was in a Final Eight championship to that girl from Iowa. She dropped 40 points, and they didn't show up to the anthem, and they lose. Iowa stands in the middle of the court holding hands, saying the anthem. The point is, one of two things is going to happen. Either it's going to collapse or it's going to excel exponentially. The grip is going to get tighter and tighter. It's going to be in your face totalitarianism. And sadly, this is where I'm disappointed, Joe. There are people who do see it and they don't care. And see, that's what's disappointing, because if you even look at what's happening in America, just look at, we'll use the documents issue. Joe Biden and Donald Trump did the exact same thing.
Right.
Let's be honest. It's the same thing. Why Joe Biden's offense was worse was this. He wasn't the president. Donald Trump was, and there is a legal opinion. I'm not a lawyer, but I've heard it. In fact, Alan Dershowitz has put it out there. He's a pretty smart guy, saying that because he's the president, he could do it. I'm not saying he's right, but there's a legal argument. There is no argument for Joe Biden.
Right.
Donald Trump had documents in a safe. Joe Biden had them in a garage, and they don't try him. And the judge declares him incompetent for trial. Now, okay, let's step back. Say you hate Donald Trump, but you're objective. How is that fair? And this is what
they're not. Well, are they interested in fairness?
No, and that's my point, Joe. That's exactly my point.
They don't even have a pretense of a pretense.
That is where, I'll be honest with you, I find it disappointing, because there are people who would agree with everything I just said, which is objective. It's not partisan. It's just objective facts. And they don't care. And they don't see how dangerous that is.
Right.
They simply refuse, because at this particular time, they either hate Donald Trump with a passion and can't see past their hatred, or they're benefiting from the power that the Democrat regime is giving them now, whether they're involved in the woke deal, whether they're like one of those different groups that are getting put forth, propelled ahead, and they don't care.
Right.
And that, to me, is disturbing. It's disturbing. And it should disturb anyone of goodwill.
Well, the thing is, too, you got to remember something. The left commits their atrocities, Joe, knowing that eventually they're going to lose power or they'll be out of power. And then, and the two things they know is this: number one, they'll lie. Like if the other side, the conservatives, actually tried to do something to them the way they do to Donald Trump and other people, they'll lie. All right, and they'll say, no, you can't equate the two. And they'll just that's why they brazenly move forward with the things they do. They'll either lie about it, or they'll get their comrades in the media to just keep lying for them, and that's why they don't care. Oh, and the other thing that'll happen is conservatives and Republicans will do nothing. Could you imagine if a conservative Republican turned around to Ketanji Brown Jackson, or let's leave her out. Let's go to Elena Kagan. Oh, wait, let's leave her out. Let's go to Sotomayor. All right, wait a minute. You got a black chick, you got a Jewish chick, you got a Catholic chick. Okay, all up in front of the United States Senate. How come nobody ever turned around to them and said, "Excuse me, you want to be a Supreme Court justice? Are you pro-life? Or are you for child murder? Are you in favor of that as a fundamental right in the Constitution? Well, I believe a woman has a right to choose. Wrong answer. You're unqualified. You're disqualified from being on the Supreme Court. I yield back the rest of my time. How come conservatives don't do that? That's what the left does, Joe. That's what the left does. That's what they did to Amy Coney Barrett. Look what they did to Brett Kavanaugh. You know what they bank on, Joe? I'm going to throw it over to you because then we're going to talk about RFK because his the air's coming out of his tires a little bit, as far as I'm concerned. Okay, but I'm going to throw it out to you. Why do we expect anything different for that when the people that we vote for, that we actually cast our vote for, they don't do crap?
Because the system is not set up for regular people, and that's one of the things that Donald Trump basically showed America. Irregardless of what happens in 2024, it showed people that the system is not set up for you. It's run by an elite class. And why the conservative doesn't do anything? Because he knows where his bread is buttered. And he knows that if he wants to keep that job, he can't do that. That's why Ronna McDaniel, whatever the heck her name was, the chairman, did what she did. Because you have to play with those who control everything. You see, this has been going on for decades. It should have been stopped decades ago. They control all the power. The only thing they don't have is the Supreme Court. And we covered that guy on CNN saying he basically echoed what I just said. He was like, we have to take the court. It's the last thing. And even the court has cracks. Roberts is in the bag. That's why Bush put him there. Right. He's part of the institution.
He's part of an already existing oligarchic institution.
And that is why I love what Donald Trump exposed to America. He exposed it. And ultimately, to be honest with you, it will fall, Joe. It's just people aren't ready yet. And I actually think, because I've thought about this, something you said made me think about it, because I was talking about on the last show, people have to come together in order to basically take down. It has to be a joint effort. But if that was to happen, there would be a civil war, because that's what happened in India. You had it wasn't even political parties, two religions, Muslims and Hindus. One worships the cow, the other eats it. Mm-hmm. I mean, you don't get more like diametrically opposed to one another. And there was a civil war. Ultimately, if you ask me, what's going to happen is we have to suffer. We have to suffer together, and we're going to. And then when the time is ripe and more people find a North Star, I'm not even going to say my North Star. My North Star, I'm a Catholic. Not everyone is going to find that North Star, but what they are going to find through suffering is a North Star. And then we're coming for you. And when that happens, the party is over.
Joe, let's keep it moving. But you want to know how about, and I'm with you on that, okay? There is no replacement North Star. The North Star for us, we're Catholic, is God, is the Trinity, okay? But how about we have a worldly common, a basic North Star? How about we're all anti-insanity? How's that for a good starting spot? Okay?
I get, you know what it is though. Why I referenced the North Star? It's similar, like if someone goes to Alcoholics Anonymous, they basically say like a higher power.
A higher power. No, and I get it
because what it is that gives you moral grounding. You see, that's why, Joe, too many people support these crazy things. Because they have no grounding, and they're grasping for like tribalism. It's basically like a kid that doesn't have a father in the inner city. He gravitates to a gang because he's looking to belong to a family.
Right.
This is what is happening in our society. Family structure has broken down. People don't believe in God. And what are they? But we're made for community. What do they do in jail to punish someone? They segregate them. They move them away from the group.
Right.
So people are becoming tribal because they don't have a family. They don't have, and then when I use the term the North Star, they have no moral basis of truth. Basic things have gone by the wayside.
How about just some plain old guardrails? You know what I mean? So if you're
And
just
that's
joining,
why the society, and that's where suffering will bring people. That's if again you read the history of the Israelites. That's exactly the history. It
it's
ebbed and
up and
flowed,
down,
and that
right?
is exactly what's going to happen.
Well,
That's what happened in Poland.
Well, I was just going to say, let's move on to RFK, Joe. But I was just going to say, if you want to, because I don't give up hope for the simple reason I've said before that in its 70 years, the Soviet Union perhaps was one of the most, if not the most powerful regime the world has ever seen. They had so much power, not just in the Soviet Union, but of course, with all the satellite states, all of Eastern Europe, the Eastern Bloc, and through suffering, the Polish people were able to defeat communism. They were the catalyst for the defeat of the Soviet Union. Let's move on. If you're just joining us here at the front line with Joe and Joe Pasillo, Joe Rossinello, of course, we're way in the breach because anytime you talk about Justin Trudeau, you're going in the breach. Do want to say hello to a few people. Curly May, Yolanda's out there. Hey, guys, how you doing? Greg's out there. Zach. So we're seeing some of our regulars. RC, David, how you guys doing? Marilyn's out there. Michelle, Barbara from Wisconsin. We love Barbara. She's been with us from the beginning. Jonathan's out there. Female KC Royals fan from Nebraska. I love it. She's one of our faves. She's always been backing us up, going back a while. Rico man has got something going on in his chat. I don't know. He scares me a little bit. And Machete Freddy. Don't know what that's all about, Joe, but we'll keep it moving. RFK's a coward, Joe. I got a friend of mine who's an atheist, and because he's an atheist, he's a former Catholic, he's now a professed atheist, and he says to me he's going to convince me to vote for RFK. There's only one way I'd vote for RFK, is if the Republican Party all of a sudden ceased to exist, or let me throw one out to you, if Nikki Haley or Mike Pence was the Republican nominee, and there's RFK and as an independent, and Scrumbiad head, as my mother would call him, Joe Biden, as the Democrat nominee. Okay. I could potentially vote for RFK because I'm never voting for Nikki Haley or Mike Pence. Okay. That's just voting for the machine. And RFK has some stones. But here's my thing, Joe. As soon as he got a little bit of pressure, he caved. He folded like a cheap camera. Okay, and Joe's gonna introduce this topic because I think this is telling about the hero of the Republic right now, Joe. I don't know if anybody broke the news to you. Is RFK? Didn't they tell you that? Well, guess what? I read this story, and you sent me the story, and this guy showed me. You know what? He lacks a bit of a spine too.
Well, it also goes to show you they put some pressure on him, but let's just frame it out and then we'll talk about it. Basically, RFK goes on CNN. Erin Burnett interviews him. CNN Digital, that's the show. And basically, he makes a comment. He criticizes Joe Biden. He says that Biden is a huge threat to democracy, and infinitely, I'm paraphrasing, he says it's a bigger threat to democracy than Donald Trump. And he is. And he says two reasons why, and they're accurate objectively.
What did he say?
The first president in the history of our country to censor speech. That's a fact. He used Facebook to censor speech in that election. His power structure did that. That's a fact. Two, what Joe Biden did. He is prosecuting his political opponent.
Yeah.
That's never happened in the history of America. And both of those things are anti-democracy. So there is a basis for the statement. So now there's pushback. So this is what he says. And he's a lawyer, and it's just a lawyered statement. I'm going to read it.
Here you go. I'm dying to hear it. Go ahead, Joe.
What I said was that I can make an argument. I didn't say definitively whether I believe one or the other is more dangerous to democracy, Trump or Biden. I did say that I don't believe either of them are going to destroy democracy. RFK, who cares? That's what a lawyer says. And frankly, what you said first is right. Based on the facts, based on those two facts, which are facts, that he censored and is censoring speech, and he is prosecuting his political opponent. That is anti-democracy, and that makes him a threat to democracy, and all objective people should be
Does it
concerned with that. And he
doesn't it make you
backpedaled.
brains? Doesn't it make you brains to fall out, as my mother would say, when the press tries to convince you that Donald Trump is the threat to democracy? Given those two facts, Donald Trump never sought to jail his political opponents. Donald Trump didn't call up Elon or what was the mutant's name who ran Twitter when Trump was in office? Jack Dorsey. Donald Trump didn't try to influence Zuckerberg or Google or Dorsey or any of them. He never did that. He didn't interfere in that. Go ahead, say what you want. They called him all sorts of names. He did this to Stormy Daniels. He did this. He's divorced. He's a jerk off. All these things that they said about him. He didn't interfere. Joe Biden does. Joe Biden's, by the way, got the thinnest skin in the room. That's why he's been lying for 50 years. That guy doesn't know how to handle tough questions. Let's be fair, and I'm not going to get into this, Joe. Let's remember, though, that Joe Biden runs nothing. Zero.
Oh, 100% agree.
And Kamala Harris is a club girl going back 25, 30 years who happen to have a law degree. Kamala Harris is just a club chick. She's the type of chick you score when you go out for drinks with your buddies when you're in your 20s, okay? So let's be clear about her. She slept her way to the top in California. She was banging Willie Brown. That's how she moved up the food chain, the political food chain in California. And here she ends up a heartbeat away from the presidency. She doesn't have the smarts. I don't call people names anymore, Joe, the way I used to, thanks to you. But I was about to call her something different. I'll just say she doesn't have the smarts. She runs nothing. Biden has lost his mind. He runs nothing. Whenever he appears lucid, it's because they shoot him up with drugs. Barack Obama is the one who's controlling this administration. Barack Obama is the one who calls Merrick Garland and tells him, you go arrest Mark Houck, that Catholic, because he attacked somebody in front of Planned Parenthood. Go drag him out in front of his kids. Barack Obama is the one who wants to put people like us on the domestic terrorist watch list. Barack Obama is the one who wants fathers arrested who go and yell at the school board when the school board hides the fact that his daughter was raped by a boy pretending to be a girl in the girls' room in the school. It's Barack Obama that's doing all this. And he's got the best out, Joe, because guess what? He's not officially the president of the United States.
No, I know, and he even alluded to that.
Biden.
He even alluded to that in like an offhanded comment. I'd like to be the guy in the basement calling the shots. I don't want to be the front man. You could actually find that statement.
Yeah, and now Barack, he is. And now
but ultimately, another thing that this experiment shows people is you don't need a president. Because Joe Biden is, like you said, Joe Biden, let's be honest, and I'll be fair, he's not who he was. I'll phrase it that way. He was never the sharpest tack. He was not, but he was at least, like I said, he's not who he was. And he's definitely lost a step or two. I'm being kind again. You don't need a president because you have a machine behind you. And we're seeing that in your face and live.
Right. I mean, RFK alluded to that. He was basically saying how and I kind of agree with this. One man cannot destroy our democracy. One man can't. But then
that's just pussyfooting around this statement.
I know.
What I would say is the democracy's already destroyed. We don't have a democracy.
Well, Joe, here's my thing. You want to talk about a controversial statement? I don't think it's controversial at all. I think it's the truth. You know what destroyed democracy in America? Democracy. Democracy sucks, Joe. I don't value democracy. I don't value democracy. You want to know why? Because if this is the result of democracy, then you tell me what's the difference between the tyranny of a democracy or the tyranny of a dictator. Either way, I'm right.
The thing is, what's his name made a comment about that, Winston Churchill. He said democracy is a horrible option, but it's the best of the horrible options.
See, I actually used to agree with that. I don't agree with it anymore.
But I'm reading right now A Brave New World Revisited, and it talks about attacks on democracy. There's a couple things that make a democracy basically run properly. One is you have to have an informed populace. We don't, because they control the media. You see, that's a big problem. A big problem. Our people are not informed. That's number one. Number two, more important, which makes the democracy function. And John Adams said this: it has to be a moral and religious people. John Adams, the second president of the United States, a founding father, and he's right. Again, going back to the North Star principle, if you do not have a moral people, the people will vote for insane people who will put forth insane laws. You have to reward people who have families, because through strong and stable families, you have stable individuals, and you reward people who go and practice a faith. I'm not talking about a theocracy. This isn't Iran. I'm talking about, and you do it through tax breaks. That's what Hungary does. That's what we should do. And that keeps the people in order. Morality, strong family, and an informed populace. And we have none of those things. And
Well, if we
that's
did
why
have
our
those things,
democracy doesn't work.
well, if we did have those things, then let's face it, you wouldn't have bird brain Biden and Kamala.
Well, that's exactly right.
Sitting in the White House.
But
If you had what you just described, you wouldn't have that. My point is that maybe democracy lends itself to that. Maybe. I'm not a political scientist.
Stopped, you see, if you like, we should have a long time ago. It's to many degrees, it's too late, because they control all the institutions of power. Now we have to, frankly, go to the bottom and then climb back up. We should have stopped this a long time
Well, then
ago.
who do you blame? Okay, here's the thing, and I think it's a relevant question. Okay, then the reason we allowed them to take the press. We're Catholic. We allowed them to infiltrate the church. We allowed them to infiltrate we have the military talking about transgenders. We never had this before 5 minutes ago. You got the Joint Chiefs of Staff talking about DEI. Is this a joke? So
what I would say is this, Joe. It begins with, if you ask me, because I remember one time, I'll be honest with you, it was one of the CFR sisters. I was on a pilgrimage, and I was making comments about the church. And we were having a conversation, and she said something that, and she's right. People who are in the church come from a family. It began with the breakdown of the family, Joe. Because I'm going to tell you this right now. If you have a loving family, two people committed to each other, who have God at the center of the family, I'm not saying you're going to produce mathematically perfect people. You're not. But the likelihood, the statistic probability that you will have functioning, sane people who will be productive and who will not be using pronouns talking about themselves in the plural tense. Like, this is where it began. The family, a society thrives or fails at the family. And what I would say is we lost it there.
I listen. You're not gonna get an argument out of me with that. Listen, you reminded me of something though. If you want to see something, if you want to see the modern man, if you want to see what they want, and what I mean by they is the oligarchs, the Klaus Schwabs, the Yuval Hararis, the WEF. If you really want to see the model man for them, okay, and it's hard to even call him a man. There's an interview, I believe it was on the BBC, with Sam Smith. Now, Sam Smith, who was born Catholic, he was a baptized Catholic, I believe, is a homosexual, or at least he was known to be a homosexual, who has completely gone off the deep end. He dresses like Satan for the Grammys, all these things. He's in an interview referring to the fact, or talking about the fact that at one point in his life, he really wanted to be a fisher them. Did you hear what I said, Joe?
That's crazy. I don't even know what that is.
It's a fisher them because he can't use the word fisherman because he's using the pronoun that you're supposed to use. You can't use man. So he's saying, I was supposed to be a fish of them. I said, this guy, number one, needs prayers. Okay, because he's obviously
crazy,
wounded, and he's insane. He's now completely gone off the deep end.
But this is the problem. and like I said, something broke, something happened there. I will guarantee you, if you trace it back, there was a trauma in his life. I'll
I
guarantee
will.
it.
I don't doubt that. I
I'll
don't doubt that
guarantee you.
for a
And this
second.
is where it goes back to what I was saying. Like our society, if we, and that's where Hungary gets it. They reward families. If I was the president, if you're married 5 years, you get a tax break. You're married 10 years, you get a tax break. You're married 15. I reward you. You have children. I'm rewarding you.
Right.
I'm rewarding you. If you give money to a church and you show me that you do, you get a record from them, I'm
Right.
rewarding you, because
Right.
all those things foster morality, which helps the society. You can't make people do things, but you can incentivize them. And that's what I would have done, because
Right.
they're vital to the society. And you have to make sure the press is free. They say the press is free. It's not free. And I'm going to tell you how to do that too. We've talked about it. I'm going to say it again. And you people, listen to what I'm telling you. You have to lower the standards of libel and slander, because people don't care about shame. They don't care about right and wrong. They do care about writing checks when they
Care
get
about the
sued.
Scott Joe
So
Resinello.
that is what you do to control that. If you
Right.
make a statement, you call me something and it's not true, I should be able to sue you. And I'm not going to sue you for $3. It's going to be
No.
for a lot.
Speaking of lawsuits, and we're going to move on because I want to play a couple clips before we run out of time. So Chloe Cole, all right, we most of you out there who's listening to us at the front line with Joe and Joe. By the way, if you like this video, if you like what Joe and I are doing, if you like our conversations, then by all means share these conversations. Joe and I have been growing our audience nicely, and we'd like to continue to do so. We have our interviews that are posted all over social media, primarily Catholic, but don't be turned off because we talk about important things, and then we get into a lot more trouble here. So if you like what we're doing, please let us know. So Chloe Cole, for those of you who don't know who she is, she at 15 years old had a double mastectomy. She still has not healed physically. Her body's not healed from that. She's in her early 20s now. She is now a detransing activist. So she is out there trying to educate people, raise their consciousness that this whole promise of transgenderism and puberty blockers and hormones and surgeries, which are really mutilation, this is a really bad idea. Joe, she's suing Disney. Did you know that?
No, that's exactly how you do it.
And she posted a video, and I would recommend everybody going out there. She actually got on the conference call with Disney, okay, where she says to Bob Iger, now she's on the conference call, and she says, I hope you know, and she went through a 2-minute thing, that I'm filing a lawsuit against you because you're promoting these lies, the lies that led to me being mutilated by these doctors. I'm filing a lawsuit against these doctors, and I'm filing a lawsuit against you. You should really go out there and see it, because, Joe, if you want to take the press down, like I said, I've said it before, and for those of you who are new to the front line with Joe and Joe, I'll give you the perfect example. Nick Sandman and his family had CNN and MSNBC by the stones, or as they say in Italian, by the goyons, okay? And they could have squeezed them, and instead they settled. Now, Joe and I don't begrudge Nick Sandman and his family for doing that. But could you imagine if Nick Sandman, after having been called a racist and lied about, as Joe just illustrated, lied about Nick Sandman, called him all sorts of names, called him a racist because that Indian activist was beating a drum right in his face. Well, guess what? His family sued and they ended up settling. If they didn't have to settle and they took that as far as they could, Joe, they were suing for $250 million. If they went and they won that suit, and I firmly believe they would have won, it would have been dragged out for years, but they would have won that suit. Okay. Can you imagine how things would have changed like that?
Well,
I'm hoping Chloe Cole takes it that far. So
that's
that
what
will
has to
change
happen.
things.
It's basically the case in America. It's New York versus New York Times
New York
versus
Times
Sullivan.
versus Sullivan. Yep.
They have to basically usurp that precedent and basically keep the standard the same as, say, a regular person, because they get a special standard, politicians. And I don't know how it works with the press, but I'm assuming it's the same. I'm not a lawyer. But what I am saying is that has to get lowered. And then, trust me, when the New York Times, the Washington Post, CNN, MSNBC, and for that matter, Fox, if they start saying things that are not true because of the people that basically pay for their advertising and control them, which they are controlled, they will get sued.
Right.
And eventually the general counsel will go into the CEO's office and say, this year we paid out 37% of our profits to litigation. And he will say, it stops. It's not happening anymore. The message will go down and it'll end, and you'll have a cleaner press. And that is, if you ask me, vital, because I'm going to tell you this right now. You cannot have a population, a democracy, when the people aren't informed,
Right.
and when they're amoral. And we are amoral, Joe. And I'm not saying I'm better than anyone else, because I'm not. I am not. But what I am saying is this. I do know that there's a boy and a girl. I do know certain basic things. I do know that it's not right to lop off the breasts of a 14-year-old girl. I do know that you can't kill a child in the third trimester, because that's not abortion, that's infanticide. And there are far too many people who don't have a problem with it. It's not just a couple. And then there are people who know and willingly vote for it anyway. Those are disqualifiers, Joe.
Right. No,
Disqualifiers. If
I
you
agree.
have everything right, and you tell me you're for that, I'm telling you right straight to your face, I can't vote for you because something's wrong.
Well,
And that's where we lost the country there. And that's why we don't have a democracy. And frankly, this has gone on for decades. This isn't, I mean, we talk to a lot of people, and many people, just like with the sexual revolution. It didn't start in the 60s. It went all the way back, and we could trace it. We don't control anything anymore.
Joe, listen, I agree with you. Listen, Joe Schmo. I like Joe Schmo. He said three Joes are better than two. Hey, Joe Schmo. Joe Schmo said, and I'm showing the comment, Trump derangement is real. Joe Schmo, I'm going to play you something. I'm playing all you people out there.
Get ready, Joe.
This guy here, if you want to see a grown man who looks like he's in pretty good shape. Joe, he looks like he's the type of guy maybe could beat the crap out of me. I don't know. All right, maybe he's tougher than me. But this guy is completely unhinged. Okay, so let's play the clip, and then we're going to come back, and we're going to tell everybody why he's unhinged. Buckle your seatbelt.
Me, law enforcement. Are you kidding me? Tonight in Grand Rapids, multiple law enforcement officers stood behind Donald Trump as he spoke. People that are elected officials like sheriffs, others hired to protect and enforce the law for the entire citizenry, not for a political party, explicitly forbidden from being a partisan authoritarian police force standing on stage, entirely unethical, probably illegal, on top of which Donald Trump has been indicted 91 times. He's liable for sexual assault. His entire business was found to be fraudulent. And law enforcement has the fucking gall to stand on stage with him. Enough is enough!
Whoa! Talk about Looney Tune. Now here's the thing: we're not actually gonna break down that guy's ridiculous, stupid argument that police officers can't endorse a particular political candidate or stand next to, because the Democrats do it too. So we could blow up his stupid argument. Nothing unethical about it. He said Donald Trump was indicted 99 times. Well, an indictment's not a conviction, sir. See, Joe, I'm getting better. I was about to call him a name, and I called him sir, okay? But here is my larger point. Joe, that guy is let's put it like this. That is a man with no hope. Because if he's going to, now, I get angry, and anybody out there who knows us at the front line with Joe and Joe know that I get angry at things, okay? But I think I get angry at real things. I don't create straw men to get angry. I get angry about real things like the destruction of the family, or when politicians want to come and get my vote and they call themselves pro-life and they don't do anything about it. I get angry at real things. This guy's angry because a couple of cops stood next to Donald Trump. And you know what? That is a man without hope, really, when you think about it, because he's getting that upset because a guy who's not even elected president has a couple of cops standing behind him. And he didn't even take a breath. That might be that might be a world record for a guy who could go on a rant show without having taken a breath once. That shows you, that guy right there, Joe, he is a guy whose vote counts as much as yours does. And I don't care how that sounds. There's something wrong with that. That's why I don't believe in democracy anymore, because that guy is insane.
Well, he belongs to a tribe. And that tribe, frankly, you don't go against a tribe. There is no question. Someone put this in a comment of recently on one of my posts in social media. They said basically, certain people, they would vote for Adolf Hitler and Charles Manson as his VP. No question about it.
Right.
Because they belong to a tribe. He belongs to a tribe. He can't see past his hate. Like, again, if you don't like Donald Trump, we don't live in a free society anymore. But if things were all equal, then just don't vote for him. That's okay. But that was unhinged and irrational.
Well, wait. Let me cut you off because we're running short on time. I want to play you a little bit more of unhinged. Now, this is a known person. A little bit more of unhinged and irrational. Check this out. I'm not going to play the whole clip, but check it out.
Smart, they'd take the January 6th and go hard at it. And they would say, he wants to pardon these people who attacked our Capitol. I worked in that building as a young man. To me, the Congress of the United States is one of the great examples of the strength of our democracy and a jewel of the Constitution. And what those people did when they violently attacked the Capitol in order to stop a constitutionally mandated meeting of the Congress to accept the results of the Electoral College is a stain on our history. And every one of those sons of who did that, we ought to find them, try them, and send them to jail.
Now, I'm not going to dignify Karl Rove, who at some point in my life when I was younger and stupider actually listened to what he said. Karl Rove is also unhinged. He is also unhinged. You want to know why, Joe? You want to talk about tribes? You want to know one of the biggest stains in American history? And I was a party to it because I voted for him, was the George Bush presidency. That's one of the biggest stains there is. Okay. First of all, we got into 2 wars. Our debt started to really skyrocket under him, then Obama, then Donald Trump. Okay, Trump didn't do anything about the debt.
They also look at our information because of the Patriot Act. We no longer have privacy because
they don't have privacy because of George Bush. You want to talk about a stain, Karl Rove? You're a stain. Well, you're a stain on our democracy.
The difference between Karl Rove and that other guy is he's calculated. Notice what he said. They have to continue to beat the drum. That's what they do.
Because Donald Trump is saying that he's going to pardon these people.
But they have to they brainwash people, Joe. The press, he gets it. They have to keep pounding the drum. And that's
But here's my point. Does Karl Rove really think that, look, fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice because I voted for Mitt Romney. Shame on me or shame on you. But you're not fooling me again. And a lot of people, Joe, did that when they voted for Donald Trump in 2016 and 2020. Said, Karl Rove, we don't want you anymore. You duped us twice, dude. You duped us twice. You did nothing for us.
Karl Rove is part of the problem. That he's got to go. You see, that's where I'll be honest.
I think that, Joe, I'm sorry, but I think that's why he made that clip. I think because he knows that we're showing him the door.
Well, we're not yet because the country doesn't belong to the people. Eventually it will. After we reach the pain point that's necessary. And we're walking towards it. Karl Rove is part of the problem. He's an elitist. So what? He puts an R in front of his name. I'm repulsed by the Republicans. Repulsed.
Well, I hate them. Repulsive.
I can't stand them almost as much as the Democrats. I'll be honest with you. I look at that guy who's supposedly a conservative, who's in charge of the Congress from Louisiana. I want to retch when I look at his face. Mm-hmm. And he was supposedly some great deal. They're all full of crap. They're all in the bag. They're all controlled because it's a donor class. And Karl Rove is part of the donor class. Right. And they brainwash the people through their partners, which is the media.
And soon as the people rebelled, not against Democrats, Republicans and conservatives have been voting against Democrats for decades. What we did was we rebelled against Karl Rove. We rebelled against George Bush. We rebelled against Jeb Bush. We rebelled against all of them. By saying, you know what? This guy actually makes sense. I don't care if he's brash. I don't, because Bill Clinton lied with every breath that he can muster. You prop him up as some sort of a noble or moral man. He's a degenerate. He's a moral degenerate. Okay, Bill Clinton, character-wise, can't even be in the same stadium as Donald Trump, as far as I'm concerned. He's the lowest of the low. You got liar extraordinaire Barack Obama. He is the one who originally, by the way, declared war on the American people, starting with his comment about God and guns. So we know where he stood for a very long time. That's why you know that Joe Biden is doing the same thing. Karl Rove just declared war on the American people the same way that Barack Obama has done for the last over a decade. And Karl Rove's going to say, you go after those people? Right, because Karl Rove wants to use the power of the state, just like the left does, to shut us down.
Well, that's Karl Rove is part of the problem. Joe, that's why, like I said, the system, our system as it was structured, if you ask me, the checks and balances spot on. Our founding fathers were brilliant. Our mistake was as the erosion began. I could go way back. I can go back to no fault divorce. I can go back, if dare I say, people think I'm nuts. When they started to say contraception, people started not having kids.
Oh, when they took prayer out of the schools.
We could go way back to a million different things, well beyond the 60s, where our country slowly but surely, we allowed the government to co-opt the public school system, all these things. And now here we are. We're like trapped rats. In plain English, we're like trapped rats, the people. And this is because we let it happen. Why? Again, we're an amoral society, Joe. And amoral people vote for amoral representation. And in fairness, Donald Trump is not a Boy Scout. He, if you ask me, in a healthy society, now he is someone who is going to bat for the people, much more so than Joe Biden. He's not perfect.
And much more so than George Bush or Karl Rove.
And I do see him, to be honest with you, I'm not a MAGA person. I am going to vote for him, though, because it's not about Donald Trump anymore. But in a healthy society, a man that's married 3 times, a man that's cheating on his wife, no. In a healthy society, that's not the leadership of this country. Sorry.
Right.
Because we're not healthy. And it begins at the grassroots level. We shouldn't be shocked. And this is how we have to get it back. And that's why, to be honest with you, there is no political solution. There is no political solution because still, they call us deplorable, whatever. But you know something? The same people that are pointing fingers at us, Joe, they're twisted. Many of them are wounded. Many of them have gone through crazy things, broken homes, abortions, all types of frigging wounds. And frankly, a lot of them are real smart. That doesn't mean they're not wounded. And they're projecting their hurt onto our society. We got to be healthy, Joe. America's got to get healthy.
Well, one of the first ways that we can get healthy is we have to start calling out the BS.
I say right now, aren't we all tired of the deep state bullshit? I can't hear you. I want you to say it louder. Aren't we all fed up with the deep state bullshit?
No, not for nothing. Not for nothing. We're gonna, you and I, we're gonna keep that video to play on future episodes. Okay. Now, I never liked Roseanne. I'm gonna be fair. I like to think that I'm fair. I never liked her. Okay. I always thought she was unhinged. Really, going back to a lot of her antics back in the '90s and things like that. So I didn't like the way she spoke and all that. But not for anything. I will listen to anybody. I don't care who they are. I'll listen to Bill Clinton if he's got something to say. I just don't think he has anything to say because he's just a liar. Same with Obama. Same with all of them. Roseanne has actually tempered herself a lot.
I just listened to her on Tucker.
Oh, yeah.
And that was a
Go
good
ahead.
interview.
I was going to
It
go
was
there.
a
Go
very
ahead.
good interview. I actually found her endearing. I also found her to be sincere. You don't have to agree with her, but she was sincere and endearing. And she also, keep this in mind, she bit the hand that fed her. People don't do that, Joe.
That's
in life.
right. That's right.
Like, I'm going to tell you this right now. Most people don't do that because she gave up millions. That is not a common thing that people do.
Right.
Call yourself whatever you want to call yourself. Democrat, Republican, conservative, liberal, blah, 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 blah. When people are going to hand you millions of dollars like water coming out of a faucet, you say anything. Most people operate like that, and she went against them. And I give her credit where credit's due.
Well,
on that.
we should give credit where credit's due, and like I said, we're going to keep that. We're going to keep that clip. It did get a little guttural tonight. You had the unhinged guy talking
Drop
about the
an
cops.
F-bomb.
He dropped an F-bomb. Okay, and this is a family show. All right, so we don't like that. But Roseanne with her BS comments, we're going to keep that. Listen, everybody out there, thank you again so much. We had a great crowd tonight, over 100 for most of the show, and we're growing from there. And we really appreciate that. Where you're watching this, particularly Rumble, particularly X, but if you're seeing it on YouTube and Facebook also there, hey, man, share it. Share the video. That's all you got to do is just hit share, and the platform will do it for you. If you like, comment. Say, hey, I like these two Italian guys. That's if you like us two Italian guys. If not, just share, like, subscribe, help us out. We're trying to have these what we believe are real conversations, pertinent conversations, relevant conversations. This way, we can help in our own way to raise the consciousness of the people out there and to let people know, hey, look, we're not alone in this fight. We're never alone because we have God. Let's keep that. Let's always remember that. But as far as our society is concerned, those people who are fighting against a lot of the evil that's out there, again, Joe says all the time, we're not going to agree on everything, but we can agree on what we're confronting is evil and insane. So let's keep getting the word out there. Let's keep encouraging people. And remember, until the next time, that our conversation is your conversation, and that conversation is going on everywhere. We'll